Her Grace Prema Padmini Mataji to you all. Her Grace Prema Padmini Mataji is a disciple of His Holiness Jai Pataka Swami Maharaj, who is an initiating guru in ISKCON. Mataji came in contact with ISKCON in 1984, and since then is practicing Bhakti Yoga as per ISKCON teachings. Along with her husband, His Grace Vijay Venugopal Das, both Prabhuji and Mataji are well known in ISKCON, have been instrumental in making thousands of devotees in Muscat, which is called as Mathura Desh. They both single-handedly developed the Mathura Desh Yatra, or Muscat devotees, who numbers in thousands and still is counting under their guidance. In 2005, the wonderful devotee couple moved to Bangalore, and since then have been preaching Bhagavad Gita. Her Grace Prema Padmini Mataji is a versatile orator and preaches all over the world, like in Russia, London, South America, USA, Canada, and many parts of India too. Under Mataji's leadership, many temples have conducted seminars and developed their congregation. In Bangalore, Mataji and Prabhuji are heading Kormangala Bhakti Center and effectively preaching the essence of human life. Her Grace Prema Padmini Mataji is a very good singer, and her bhajans are soul stirring. When Mataji leads Hare Krishna Kirtan, our eyes and hearts are filled with love for Krishna. This you're going to experience during this seminar. Also, Mataji is an excellent cook, and her dishes are lip-smacking and tasty prasadams, which we all have had the fortune of tasting it. Mataji has authored many books which explains the relationship values in our daily lives. She is also heading the devotee care department in Mayapur, West Bengal, India, and is a trained counselor. Mataji has many more feathers in her cap and is a multi-talented devotee working for welfare of human society in a caring way to show the real path to the people in general, highlighting the importance of taking birth in human form. I welcome Her Grace Prema Padmini Mataji in this occasion to take over and conduct the seminar. So we're going to have a 1 hour session, and after that, time permits, then we'll take question and answers. Otherwise, the question answers can be asked in the next session, that is tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Over to you, Mataji.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. Welcome to all of each and every one of you. Thank you for joining this Bhagavad Gita session. I hope you will really benefit by this, and you can get a good summary of this Bhagavad Gita, and that it really helps you to go deeper. I mean, it will really help you in your life. The application can bring us a great love, truth, and happiness, and this is our goal. So, Vedvit Prabhu, can you share the screen? I mean, have you set it up already? I'm sorry, because it's the first day. It's a little getting delayed. Otherwise, we are always on time. So, come tomorrow it will be.
Mataji, 1 second. I'll just set it up. Give me a minute. I'll do it.
Okay, no problem. I'm just praying to the my Guru Parampara before I start.
Yes.
Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnana Jana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimati Jayapataka Swaminati Namne Ma Charipataya Nithai Kapradayane Gorakata Damdaya Nagaragaramtarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminati Namne Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirvisesh Sunyavadi Paschatadeshtarne Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Before I show you the PowerPoint, I want to tell you what we're going to be covering in this session and how I'm going to deal with it. Is my voice audible? I hope it's...
Yes, Mataji, you're audible, you're audible.
Yeah.
Mataji, are you still here or did you get disconnected?
She got disconnected.
She's not there. I just scribbling. నీ దాంట్లోనే ఏమైనా స్క్రిబుల్ అయి వస్తుందేమో నా స్క్రీన్ చెక్ చేసుకో ఒకసారి మాట్లాడొచ్చు.
నువ్వు ఇట్లా అన్నప్పుడు అవుతుంది నాకు.
Mataji, there's meeting.
Hare Krishna. I think Padmini Mataji got disconnected, looks like. I will just wait for her to reconnect again.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So is the screen share ready, Prabhu? Or will it take a little longer?
No, Mataji, 1 second, I'll do it.
Okay. So what we're going to see in this first chapter is now the first chapter deals with... Yes, okay. What's that line?
Not sure why that happened, Mataji.
Okay, no problem. So this is Bhagavad Gita as it is. So what it means is that Bhagavad Gita... Oh, why are all these?
I am not sure why that's happening. It's gone now, yes.
Okay. So Bhagavad Gita as it is means as it was spoken by Krishna and as it was understood by Arjuna. There's no need for any interpretations because clearly Arjuna's, Krishna's words are recorded in Sanskrit and Arjuna also, keeps mentioning his understandings. So it is very crystal clear. And if we understand the Bhagavad Gita, we will know everything. The essence of all the Vedic scriptures are within the Bhagavad Gita. And it also contains the essence of all religions of this world. So this is the science of Bhagavad Gita. And in this first chapter, this is the setting of the Mahabharata war. And the battle is just about to begin. And, so there is a series of conversations. The entire thing is Sanjaya narrating this Bhagavad Gita, this entire war to Dhritarashtra, who's blind, and he's sitting in his palace. And Sanjaya is narrating. So it begins, the scene begins about observing the armies. And then just in the midst of the, when the battle is just about to begin, Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita. When everyone's attention is just focused on the war, at that time, he speaks the Bhagavad Gita in front of all the kings of the entire world that had assembled there. So you can imagine its great importance, how it is meant for the whole world. Can you go to the next one?
Someone is drawing on the slide. Can you please stop doing that, because the slides are getting covered? So we request everyone to remove their cursor from the slide.
Hare Krishna, some children are playing. Somebody please, parents, take care. So ask children not to do anything on the slide. I don't know why this is coming. Somebody is drawing on the slide. Please. అమ్మ దయచేసి ఎవరో పిల్లలు ఆడుతున్నారు స్క్రీన్ మీద. సో దయచేసి పిల్లలు కర్సర్ ని తీసేయండి.
Yes, Mataji, you can continue.
Okay, but okay, let me see my own screen then. Just a minute. You can't rub this off, is it? Okay. So the Bhagavad Gita literally means the song of God, the song of love by Lord Krishna, because he has said it with great desire. Because he loves us so much, he wants us to get out of the problem, just as he gave these instructions to Arjuna to remove the perplexity he was in, and for each and every one of us to be victorious in the battle of life. So that was spoken in the battlefield. Imagine, it is not meant just for retired people or for sages. It was meant for people in the fighting in the battle of life. And so Arjuna was chosen, even though he was not a sadhu or a sannyasi. He was a Kshatriya. He had his family and he was fighting in the war. And in the middle of the war, Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita. So you can imagine how relevant it is in our lives, for all times, for all groups, for people all over the world. Because Bhagavad Gita has been spoken not just 5,000 years ago, but from the beginning of creation. We will see Krishna gives a history of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, can you go to the next screen? So we are very anxious that the Lord should speak to us. And the Lord has spoken to each and every one of us in the pages of the Bhagavad Gita and recorded it so painstakingly by Vyasadeva. So if we go through the Bhagavad Gita, every verse is directly speaking to us. Yes, go to the next screen. Next slide, please. Okay. So this Bhagavad Gita should be understood through the disciplic successions. We have this particular disciplic succession which comes from guru to disciple, unbroken, without any kind of motivated explanations. Because some people, they have their own philosophies and they use the Bhagavad Gita to prove their point. But if we understand Bhagavad Gita like that, then the message will be lost and the power of the Bhagavad Gita will be lost. And so, what is our parampara? Starting from Krishna. Krishna first, spoke it to Brahma. in the beginning of creation, when Brahma was created, there was nobody else. And, Vishnu just told him, do tapasya. So he sat and meditated for 1,000 years. And then when he was, when he has established his contact with the Lord and he had pleased him, then Krishna directly spoke the Vedas and everything in the heart of Brahma. And Brahma is the head of our disciplic succession. We are Brahma, Madhava, Gaudiya, Vaishnava. So Brahma is Guru. And then he spoke it to Narada. Narada, who was his putra, Manas Putra, a son. And then Narada spoke it to Vyasadeva and instructed him to write all the scriptures down. And Vyasa, in between, there are some, there's a broken link. I mean, the names are there, but I did not mention in this slide. It is there in the Bhagavad Gita book, but I have only put the prominent names. So then we have Madhvacharya, and Madhvacharya, again, there is a list of names between Madhvacharya and Madhvendra Puri. Madhvendra Puri was an exalted devotee and a great scholar. And then his disciple was Ishwar Puri, and Ishwar Puri's a disciple was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself. I will also mention about him at the end. And his down the line, there was other acharyas, and then we have Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura, who was there in the beginning of the previous century, in the 20th century. And then we have A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is the founder, Acharya of ISKCON, and author of Bhagavad Gita as it is. And this quotation is from Bhagavad Gita. It says, 4th chapter, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarashiyo viduhu. Only through parampara can we understand this the truth. We can get self-realization only through Guru. So only through the parampara or disciplic succession. Okay. Next slide, please. So this is the scene of the Mahabharata. The war is about to begin, and Dhritarashtra, who is conversing with Sanjaya, you can see in the photo, is asking him, Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre. Why is my people have been assembled there? Why has Kurukshetra been addressed as Dharmakshetra? Because it is a very pious, holy place, and it's very significant. Because in a holy places, people get influenced and they become very pious. And also, please go to the previous. So, people are influenced by pious thoughts. And Krishna was personally present in the war. So Dhritarashtra asked Sanjaya what actually happened, because he was very worried, what would be the outcome of the war, especially because it was being held in Kurukshetra, and he knew that his sons were not at all pious. And Krishna was on their side, on the side of the Pandavas. Dhritarashtra's weakness was that he had a weakness for his sons, and he was calling only his sons as Kurus, or the inheritors of, the successors of the Kuru dynasty. And he separated the Pandavas. And he was, along with Duryodhana, he was, involved in a lot of political activities to keep the Pandavas away from their rightful throne. So that was his weakness. He was not only blind, blind physically in his eyes, but he was also blind spiritually. And then he had his fears that maybe, because of the influence of the holy place, the cousins may come to some truce. And he didn't want any kind of compromise. He wanted to win the war, and he wanted his sons to have the entire kingdom. And he wanted the battle. So Sanjaya's gift from Guru Vyasadeva. So now we are very proud of our technology that we can have televisions and watch things that are happening far away. But through mystic power, through the mercy of his guru, Sanjaya, his guru was Vyasadeva. By his mercy, he could see everything that was happening at the battle far away, sitting in the palace. And so he could narrate everything to Dhritarashtra. Yeah, please go to the next screen. Next slide. So then we see, after he had asked him what is happening, so Sanjaya is beginning to narrate. First is about, he was sure that the battle is not going to end, nothing, I mean, it's not going to stop, and it is going to happen. And he mentions what Duryodhana is doing. So Duryodhana, due to lack of integrity and moral power, he has to use, diplomacy. He has to motivate everyone because he's not in the, side of truth. So he's weak morally. So now, even though he is a king, he walks up to Drona just because of the situation. It was an emergency situation. So he, sets aside etiquette and goes to Drona, who is the commander-in-chief, but he is the king. And he starts speaking to him. First of all, he falls Drona's liberalism to Drupada. Drupada was on the other side, Pandava's side, the father of Draupadi, and he had an enmity towards Drona because they were childhood friends. And later on, when Drona went to see him, because Drupada was a king, and he had promised Drona that I'll give you half my kingdom whenever you want later on. And so Drona never cared for the kingdom. He was a Brahmana, but his son, he was so poor that he couldn't even afford milk for his son Ashwatthama. And this hurt him a lot. And so he went to ask him. And he said that you had promised me half your kingdom, but I've just come to ask for a cow. But Drupada insulted him and he said, what do you mean? We are friends. Friendship is between equals. And he really insulted him. So Dronacharya's ego was hurt. And he went back and he decided to teach the Kurus warfare just to build them up to fight against Drupada. But Drupada later on, he Drupada was heavily defeated by his disciples. Arjuna just defeated him. So Drupada did a yajna just to get a good son to defeat Dronacharya. And so that was Drishtadyumna. And Drishtadyumna was the one who had set up this whole military arrangement for the Pandavas, all that he had learned from Dronacharya. And even though Dronacharya knew that Drupada had son, he still, when he sent his son to being educated, he taught him, because fear of death should not prevent one from doing one's duty. And even as a Brahmana, he showed that. So now Duryodhana was pointing it out that, see, Drupada, the son of Drupada, he purposely said Drupada's name to incite him and to warn him that don't become liberal now. You have to fight against the Pandavas. And also Arjuna is also his favorite. So, of course, he was quite confident that Bhishma and Drona will only fight for him, because even during the, when Draupadi was being, disrobed in the, she was being insulted at that time, they both had kept quiet. So they thought that they will definitely support me. And then he fears, after doing all these diplomatic things, first he, as a...
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
There is a request to go little slow, Mataji.
Okay, yes. Sure. So, first he spoke to Dronacharya and he tried to, incite him so that he will feel, fired up to fight for him. Then he discusses about the opposite side, what was their strengths, because we should not be overconfident about ourselves. That is a perfect, politician. He should also know a perfect fighter. So he says that he's actually, even though he was diplomatic and he was trying to encourage his own people, he can't hide the fear and his feeling, because Arjuna and Bhima are very strong. And he wants Drona to uproot them without any sentiments for them, because they were also his students. And he encourages both Bhishma and Drona diplomatically. How? Because Bhishma is the general, and he is his grandfather. But at the same time, Dronacharya, I mean, he first says, Drona, you, and then he tells Bhishma, so that Bhishma won't be, he won't feel hurt, because Drona was a Brahmana. And purposely, he mentions all his close people, Kripa, his brother-in-law, Ashwatthama, great generals. I mean, he was taking stock of his, his people also. And so he says, there are you like Bhishma and Drona, yourself, Bhishma, Ashwatthama, Kripacharya, all his people, just to make him very happy. And then he also, along with this, all these, great fighters, he's also putting Vikarna, praises Vikarna, who is just one of his brothers, one of his 99 brothers, who is not particularly a great, a fighter or anything. But during the Draupadi Vastraharan, he had spoken against what they were doing. He didn't like it. So he was scared that he may defect to the other party. Because before the battle starts, both parties are allowed to change sides if they wanted. So just to please him, he put Vikarna along with these great fighters and encourages others to through flattery. He says, oh, Bhishma is of course very great, but then he may get involved in the battle, and all of you should also protect him on all sides. And so he wants everyone to feel very important. Yeah, next slide. Is my speed okay?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. Now we go to Pandavas. What are they doing? Are they, because the Pandavas are on the path of the truth. They are righteous heirs to the kingdom, and they never did any wrong act, even though the Kauravas were all the time. Okay. So I think I should introduce all the characters. So the I'm just assuming that the Mahabharata characters. So we have Bhishma Dev, who's the general, who's the grandfather of the the Kauravas. And then you have Dronacharya, who's the teacher. And then you have Duryodhana, who was the king, who was ruling over Hastinapura as the head of the Kauravas. He was the eldest son, eldest Kuru. And so they were all the time very envious of the Pandavas, their cousins, whose father Pandu was actually ruling. So they had the rightful claim to the throne. But because their father had died untimely, and Dhritarashtra, his elder brother or their uncle, he also had a great desire to be on the throne. He was the elder brother, but because of his blindness, he could not be the king. So he always had that regret. And plotting a lot and now, here's why, even though Pandavas did not claim by cheating and so on, they had usurped their kingdom. And the Pandavas didn't even want the kingdom. They just said, give me 5 villages so that we can just rule, do our dharma, do our occupational duty. But they were not ready for that. And so finally, Krishna went as a messenger, and still nothing happened. And so the war had to take place. So Pandavas, they were completely dependent on Lord Krishna. Duryodhana wanted Krishna's army. Krishna was equal. And he asked both of them, which do you want, myself or my army? And Krishna said, I want only you. So, what is the use of anything other than you? So Arjuna was very intelligent. And Duryodhana, because he didn't understand the greatness of Krishna, he was inwardly very happy. Oh, I'm going to get the big army of Krishna. What is the use of just one person? So that is Pandava's dependence on Lord Krishna. Okay, next slide, please. Can we go to the next slide? So, after he had encouraged everyone, Duryodhana, then Bhishma Deva wanted to please Duryodhana. So he blew his conch shell loudly, but also indirectly he was warning him that the conch is a symbol of Krishna, and he was blowing it to tell him that don't be very hopeful about your victory. Actually, Duryodhana was placing all his dependence on Bhishma Dev because he was really the greatest in battle. Nobody could have defeated him. But Bhishma Dev is caught in the web of siding with Adharma. Bhishma Dev was a great devotee and a pure devotee. And also, he was a great demigod. Actually, he is one of the Vasus who had been cursed, and he took birth in the Kuru dynasty, to his father Santanu. And he was a very, very strong and powerful person. So Duryodhana was very sure of their victory. But because Bhishma Dev was fighting on the wrong side, he knew he was going to lose. Okay, next slide. Next slide, please. So what are the signs of blowing of the, so when they blew their conch shells, Bhishma blew his conch shell, and then the Pandavas, they also blew their conch shells, and those conch shells are considered to be transcendental. Why? Because because they were it was blown by Krishna and all his devotees, and so we'll see the names of the conch shells. Lord Krishna's conch shell was Panchajanya, Yudhishthira's was Ananta Vijaya, Bhima's was Poundram, Arjuna's was Devadatta, Nakula's was Sughosha, Sahadeva's was Manipushpakau. So these are special conch shells, and of course the others also, there were other kings also who blew their conch shells. And because they were on, Krishna was on their side, it is mentioned as transcendental, and it gave great fear to the Kauravas. When they heard this conch shell, they became very afraid. Whereas when the other party blew their conch shell, the Pandavas were not at all disturbed. And why is that? Because of their dependence on Lord Krishna. That is why they were fearless. Okay. Please go to the next. So what are the signs of victory for the Pandavas, the righteous? We may think, see, Duryodhana, according to him, he was very confident of victory because of the, their army was much larger, and none of the fighters on this side, Krishna anyway said, I'm not going to take part in the battle. And so all the other kings were no match to Bhishma Dev. But still, the signs of victory were for Pandavas, the righteous. What is that? First, Rishikesha, the controller of our senses, was with the Pandavas, driving Arjuna's chariot. So this word Rishikesha is very significant. Rishika means our senses, and Isha means controller. So Rishikesha means controller of our senses. It is mentioned that because Krishna Rishikesha was there, and so he was directly, so he's controlling, he's the Paramatma in our hearts, and he's controlling all of our senses, but he controls according to how much we listen to him or we surrender to him. And in the case of pure devotee, completely controls his senses. So Arjuna was just not fighting at all. It was Krishna who was giving him guidance, instruction, controlling his senses. So then, and also he was driving his chariot. Now that is another thing of significance, that apart from that, as a chariot driver, he was right next to Arjuna and giving him all kinds of instructions. And the same thing can be said that our body is also like a chariot, and all the scriptures mention that body is like a tree, and in the heart, two birds are sitting. Two birds, one is our soul and the other is Krishna himself. And according to our surrender, Krishna is also ready to guide us, control our senses, help us in all ways. So the arrangement of military force was guided by Krishna. That is another big advantage for them. And wherever there is Krishna, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, is also with him. So that is also a sign, because she's the goddess of good fortune. So definitely that is another sign. And because they were fighting at the holy place is also favorable to the pious and those who are fighting for dharma. Okay, please go to the next slide. If you have any doubts, I will stop at a particular in between and you can ask your questions, or at the end. Then apart from that, what were the other signs of victory? Support from all of Krishna's associates. Agni Dev, the Devata, fire god, he gifted the chariot to Arjuna, and that chariot could go in all directions and it could conquer everywhere in all the three worlds. And then Chitraratha, the chief of the Vidyadharas, Devatas, and he gave beautiful white horses. Indra's conch shell and quiver was given to Arjuna. These are all Devatas who have extraordinary power and so on. So they were giving all their weapons and chariots and all that for Arjuna's use. And Hanuman was on the flag of Arjuna's chariot. And he had promised Bhima, the brother, one of the Pandavas or elder brother of Arjuna, that I will definitely join in this war. And when you are shouting your war cries, I will make it even louder. And so that, the enemy side will feel great fear. And we should know that Hanumanji was also fighting for Rama in the fight against Ravana, and he was victorious. So in this war also, when Hanumanji is there, then that is also a sign of victory for the Pandavas. So what we learn from this is, when we are on Krishna's side, all of his associates also help us. All the devotees, all his pure devotees and all the devatas, everybody are ready to help a person who is surrendered to Krishna, who is his devotee and acts according to Krishna's desires and instructions. Yes. Next slide, please. The Lord is called Achyuta because Arjuna calls him, "Oh Achyuta, please, take my rath towards, keep it in between the battle so that I could see all who have come." Why is he called Achyuta, or the infallible? Because he never fails in his affection for his devotees. More than anything else, love is the highest principle. So Krishna, for the sake of that, for his affection, to protect his devotees, he is even ready to forgo his word. It happened many times. When Rukmini wanted him to come and save her from being married to Shishpa, so at that time, then what happened? She had sent a messenger, a Brahmana messenger to Krishna, and Krishna was in the battlefield fighting a war against Jarasandha, who had actually kept on attacking Krishna's army in Mathura 18 times. So this was the last war and he was fighting it. And at that time he got this message and he just left the battle and went, because his devotee, to protect the devotee is most important. And he didn't mind the bad name or whatever people may call him. And he is fondly called as the Ranchor, or one who ran away from the battle. So that is the reason he calls him Achyuta. And in this battlefield, Bhishma wanted to show how Krishna doesn't care for his own name. He had promised that he will not take part in the war. But when Bhishma attacked very fiercely and he was going to put Arjuna to death, at that time, Krishna got so angry and he took the wheel of the chariot and he went very forcefully towards Bhishma to kill him. And Bhishma was so happy because he wanted to prove that Krishna values protecting his devotees above everything else. And the Lord became the charioteer's servant for his friend Arjuna. Being a charioteer or a driver is a very menial job. He has to take instructions from from Arjuna. Go, take me here, take me there. And most of the times in the heat of the battle, you don't even have enough time to converse. So just with his foot, he had to touch the one side or the left foot or the right foot to indicate where to turn. So he had taken up, and then he had to maintain his horses, clean, give them bath and feed them water and so on. So he took up this menial service just for his devotee. So there is always a reciprocal relationship between the Lord and his devotee. A devotee wants to serve the Lord and please him. And the Lord is also looking for opportunities to please and serve his devotees. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. My voice is not clear.
You're clear, Mataji.
Okay. So, Arjuna is requesting Krishna, please take me in front of, in between the battle, so that I want to see who all have come to fight. Because he was he wanted to know that, because Duryodhana was on the path of untruth, and he didn't know why. He wanted to know who are all the people who were siding with him. So Krishna driving him directly in front of Bhishma and Drona, not in front of anyone else, right in front of Bhishma and Drona, for a purpose, because he knew what will be the reactions of Arjuna. And Krishna was very eager to speak the Bhagavad Gita. So he purposely wanted Arjuna to become very emotional. Arjuna, seeing only family members and well-wishers everywhere, all are Kurus, and then well-wishing, I mean, they're all friends, or most of them are his own family members. Grandfather Bhishma, teacher, Dronacharya, and so many, in their level, so many teachers and fathers-in-law and children, like Lakshmana, the son of Duryodhana, all are related very closely. Overwhelmed with compassion and reverential affection. So seeing all of them, he thought, oh my God, I have to kill all these people. He knew what was going to happen because he was such a great warrior. And seeing all these people, he didn't want to, fight with any of them. Okay, next slide. So Arjuna, seeing them, what were the symptoms of stress? His limbs were quivering, mouth was drying up, body trembling, hair standing on end, and skin was burning. So when we are on stress, the body undergoes all these kind of symptoms. You can see how much stressed he was. He himself mentions that all this is happening to him. And the famous Gandiva bow, which he was, he said that until I finish this war, I'm never going to give up this Gandiva. And if anyone even suggests that I should give up the Gandiva, I'll kill them. So once, during some moment of, in the battle, Karna was almost, attacking Yudhishthira very badly, and he had, hurt him very badly. So Yudhishthira had gone inside to the camp, and Arjuna, leaving everything, went to see how he's doing. And Yudhishthira said, Arjuna, have you come with the good news that you have defeated Karna? And he said, no, I came to see how you were doing. And so Yudhishthira got very upset with him. What kind of a warrior are you? You're a coward. You should give up your Gandiva. And then Arjuna was perplexed. He said, I have taken a vow that if anyone suggests even I should give up the Gandiva, I'm going to kill them. So he was about to take his sword because it's your word. He had given his word. And then Krishna stopped him and he said that You can kill us with your words. So Arjuna just smashed him, saying that, what kind of a person are you? You were sitting in the gambling, watching your wife being, brought. You even traded her and so on. He just gave him all kinds of, insults. And then after that, he touched his lotus feet and said, please forgive me. So that was the thing. So that Gandiva was so important to him, and that was slipping out of his hand, unable to stand, and mind was reeling. So all the soft-heartedness, just by seeing, by being so compassionate and moved, and these are signs of a devotee. Duryodhana was not feeling anything. He was happy. He saw all his relatives. He didn't care anything, that they are all, even if they die. But Arjuna was very soft-hearted. So this is a sign of a devotee. Okay, next slide. Arjuna's reasons for not wanting to fight the war. So after seeing all this, then he tells Krishna various reasons why he is not ready to fight the war. First of all, compassion towards all. He was not only compassionate to his own side, but to the other side also. Because he was, that's what, as a devotee, it's material attachment also, compassion, yes. And he didn't want to unnecessarily kill. Even though he was such a great warrior, he did not want to unnecessarily, he never misused that, his greatness or skill in fighting. So that was the first reason. He said, why should we kill just so that we can sit on the throne? Why should so many people be killed? So that seemed that shows how he was so much in self-control, and he didn't want to unnecessarily be violent and so on. Second reason was, even if they fought the war and they won, but how could they enjoy with their relatives? Because everyone, when you have some victory, when you're in, got some success and you've got some opulence and all that, you want to share it with all your relatives and enjoy. And none of them are, if they become successful, none of them will be there to enjoy, the kingdom and so on. So what is the point? The victory itself will be a sense of defeat. So that is the reason he gives for not wanting to fight the war. And fear of sinful reactions, because though actually they're fighting a rightful cause, because the Dharma Shastra, Artha Shastra says that 6 types of aggressors can be killed. One who is sets fire, who usurps your land, or who poisons you, or who takes away your wife, or sets fire to your house. Did I mention that? And so all these things had been done by the Kauravas, and yet Arjuna, that is for ordinary people. But Arjuna is very great, and he wants to consider the Dharma Shastras, which says that you should never kill your own relatives and so on. So he wants to forgive, and he is afraid of all the sinful reactions that will come to him because of doing this. And he says that even though the other party is hell-bent on killing us, why should we do that, knowing how bad it is? So that is, of course, Krishna is going to tell him the sin is not because of fighting the war. Sin is if you don't fight according to the instructions of Krishna. But so Arjuna very cleverly asks him, calls by different names. When he was talking about enjoyment, he called them Govinda. Govinda means one who gives pleasure to our senses. Go means senses, Vinda, one who gives pleasure to either our senses. Go is also cow, and so on. So he says, Govinda, you're supposed to be giver of pleasure. Then why are you engaging me in this war, which is not going to give me any happiness? So, but he is misinterpreting the name of Govinda. Govinda means not that he will simply keep doing whatever we want for our senses, but rather it is the other way. If we do what will please the senses of Krishna, then our senses will also automatically be pleased. And then fear of sinful reaction. So he calls him Madhava. Madhava means the husband of the goddess of fortune. You are you're the husband of the goddess of fortune. Why are you telling us things which will not give us good fortune and give us sinful reactions instead? And the other last reason, there is one more reason, but that will come in the next chapter. In this chapter, he talks of decadence of society due to mass slaughter of men. So many kings are going to be killed, the upholders of religion. And so if then nobody is following any religious principles, then what will happen? Nobody is performing yajnas and so on. There'll be a decadence. People will just do whatever they like. And then women also, so many men, because they will get degraded, and they will, so they will have unwanted children. And these children are not going to perform any of the family traditions, Vedic rituals. And because of that, even the ancestors will suffer, because we know we do the Shraddh ceremony so that any ancestors who have not got a proper body or who are suffering in hell and so on can be uplifted. So in so many ways, and then so many social welfare, community welfare projects, family welfare projects, everything will be destroyed if responsible people are all killed. Then nobody is going to follow any of these Vedic guidelines and instructions. So he actually, all of this sounds very, very logical. So Arjuna, actually his motivation was he didn't want to fight the war because he didn't want to kill due to material attachment to his people. But he was giving very good excuses to Arjuna very intelligently, so that Krishna would say, okay, there's no need to fight. Okay, can we go to the next slide? Next slide, please. So, we are almost come away. 3 types of miseries. So, Arjuna was very stressed. We can see, because he was facing, what a great problem he faced. Imagine he had to fight with his own kith and kin and kill them in a battle. That's just terrible. He was hoping that at least Krishna, he calls him Janardana. That means you not only as the protector, but Janardana also means one who kills, those who are demonic, So he wanted that if they have to be killed, let Krishna kill. Why should I kill my own people? So that is the kind of perplexity he was in. So in life, we have 3 types of miseries which are mentioned in the Shastras. Adhyatmika, pertaining to our own body and mind. Either physically we suffer some disease or mentally some problem. Then Adidaivika, inflicted by natural disturbances, earthquakes, famines, floods, and endemics, and so on, which is caused outside of us. And they Adi Daivika means it is controlled by the Devatas. And Adi Bhautika is difficulties imposed by other people. So imposed by society, community, nation, and others, by people around us. So these are the 3 types of miseries that everyone faces. Now, please go to the next slide. Yes, coronavirus is the Adi Bhautika that we are experiencing now. So we can understand. Now, we do face all these problems. But how do we solve these problems? We know for corona how much effort is being taken. People can't understand how to put this off. Of course, they're trying to get vaccines. Research work is being done. But is it enough? Can our own material perspectives solve our problems? Because even if they find a vaccine for this particular disease, for corona, we've already had many other viruses before. And again they keep repeating. These problems will keep happening. We have to find a permanent solution. And so what is that? We have to see not from the perception of our mind and body personality. But we have to understand our complete self, who we are, what is the purpose of our life, what is the goal in life. And so this Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is going to explain everything to Arjuna, because Arjuna is completely confused like us. What is my duty? Why am I suffering? And he didn't know what to do, but he intelligently surrendered to Krishna, and Krishna, he explains everything that needs to be known, that needs to be known by us. He gives complete knowledge, and that helps us, that will help us from a spiritual, we get a spiritual perspective to solve all our problems. So now Krishna gave the Bhagavad Gita and he left. But how do we understand how to follow this Bhagavad Gita, how to apply it in our lives? So he comes again 500 years ago, 5,000 years ago, he left. Again, 500 years ago, he appears as Lord Chaitanya, the golden avatara for this age. How can we confirm Lord Chaitanya's divinity? The Vedic scriptures set up clear parameters which help us identify a safe incarnation. Because why do I call safe? Because there are so many people who claim to be avatars. And so there are so many avatars. Now, how do we know which is genuine and which is not genuine? So there is a test to find out if this is a genuine incarnation of the Lord. Yes, next slide. You see the golden form of Chaitanya in the photo. Yes, please. First, who is the safe incarnation? First is scriptural prediction. Scriptures should predict him. A, astrology and attributes. Astrologically, they should, talk about his activities, future, this thing also, and in his body, any special features and so on. And then the acharyas should have also predicted this, and extraordinary activities. So based on this, let us see whether Chaitanya, and on the left you see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in a Shadbhuja form. He showed this many times during his this thing. He has 3 sets of arms. In his bluish this thing arm, he is holding the flute, Krishna's, and then he has like Rama, the bow and arrow. And in the 3rd set of arms, he has a danda and kamandalu of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who took sannyas. So this is a Shadbhuj form where he showed. So this is okay. Please go to the next slide. Then scriptural evidence. We have so many scriptures: Srimad Bhagavatam, Adi Puran, Kurma Puran, Garuda Puran, Narsimha Puran, Padma Puran, and so on. So many Puranas and Upanishads. Everywhere the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance has been predicted. We'll just take a sample. So this is in the Sita Govinda Sakshat Chaitanya Gosani Jiva Nishtarite Aiche Dayalu Aranai. Govinda, that Govinda personally appears as Chaitanya Gosani. No other Lord is as merciful in delivering the fallen souls. So please go to the next slide. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then this is from the Narasimha Puran. That's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who in the Satya Yuga appeared as a half man, half lion to cure a terrible disease that had ravaged the Daityas, and who in the Treta Yuga appeared as a person named Rama, the person who defeated the 10-headed demon Ravana, and who in the Dwapara Yuga removed the earth's burden and protected the Gopa, cowherd men, people of Brajapura, will appear again in the Kali Yuga. His form will be golden. He will delight in chanting the Lord's holy names, and his name will be Chaitanya. What could be more clearer than this prediction in the Narasimha Purana? Okay, next. Next slide, please. Oh, there is, okay, astrology and attributes. So when the baby Chaitanya was born, he was called Nimai. Then Jagannath Mishra, his father, saw the wonderful marks on the soul of his son. He became very joyful and privately called for Nilambar Chakravarti, his father-in-law. He was a very expert astrologer. When Nilambar Chakravarti saw those marks, he smilingly said, "Formerly, I ascertained all this by astrological calculation and noted it in writing. There are 32 bodily symptoms of a great personality. 5 of his bodily parts are large, 5 fine, 7 reddish, 6 raised, 3 small, 3 broad, and 3 grave, different parts of the body as it is given in the Shastra." So he could see that in the body. This baby has all the symptoms of Lord Narayana on his palms and soles. He will be able to deliver all the 3 worlds. So his attributes were also of a avatara. Okay, please go to the next. Then, following acharyas in Vishnu Sahasranama, which is given by, please go to the previous one. Yeah. It is, you have this verse, Suvarna Varna Hemango, in golden form, Hema Anga, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is mentioned there. According all these, the sage Vaisampayana included his name in the Vishnu Sahasranama because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because of this, he is the avatar. And so, Sahasranama of Vishnu, even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's name was included. So, even the Acharyas, it was given by Bhishma Deva. So, okay. Next one, please. So, Krishna incarnated in the year 1486 to teach how to follow Bhagavad Gita. And he came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what was his teachings? I mean, he has given that very Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But basically, what he wanted to teach us is this: he came as his own devotee. That is why he didn't proclaim himself as God, because Krishna wanted to show he came as a God and he gave the instructions. But he also again came as his devotee to teach us how to be a devotee. And he said, Bolo Krishna, chant Krishna's names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This is the practical way of surrendering to Krishna. Bhajo Krishna, serve Krishna practically by worshipping him and offering him food, singing kirtan and all this. Bhajo, do worship him. And Koro Krishna Shiksha, follow Krishna's instructions as said in the Bhagavad Gita. So very practically, he taught us how to raise our consciousness so that we can even understand the Bhagavad Gita. It's very difficult to just understand Bhagavad Gita without undergoing some kind of, without chanting the holy names and so on, because it's on the spiritual platform. It's Krishna is speaking, and it is not just some ordinary book. And so, to understand the intricacies of the Bhagavad Gita, when we start chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, then very easily we understand all the essence of, the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, and then our life will be very successful. Next slide, please. So, okay. I will actually in the next classes, we'll also do one verse of the Bhagavad in that chapter. We will, learn that verse, which will give a sort of essence of that chapter, and you can also learn. Of course, later on, I'll also say, share a file with many important verses, which you can try to learn it on your own, and we'll also recite it together. So now we have come to the end of the first chapter, and so if you have any questions, you can please ask. Yes. Are there any questions? Or would you like to share something?
Hare Krishna. Mataji, we have unmuted now. If anybody has got any question, they can ask or they can type also. You can unmute yourself and you can ask the question to Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Then
This is Venkatapati Devada. Please ask the number of questions. My question is, Mataji,
yes.
why did Krishna teach Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna and not any other Pandava or any other great personality?
Pardon? Yes. Maybe you can just type it. I think, unmute. Prabhu, you mute them and this thing, you type out the question so that yeah, there was a question which I read about Gandhari. Is it? Okay, somebody had asked a question first about what's the difference between a teacher and a guru. So a teacher is one who teaches, anyone who teaches some kind of knowledge is a teacher. So it can be any knowledge. Like for example, Dronacharya, he taught them warfare, how to use the weapons and so on. He's not a guru, he's a teacher. But a guru who gives us spiritual knowledge, who makes us advance in spiritual life, who makes us understand who we are and gives us, who teaches us who is God and the process to please God, who tells us how to act correctly in life so that we will please God and make advancement. So that's the difference. Why did, wait, can you please repeat it? Which one? This what I told about teacher and guru? Somebody wanted me to, wait, let me see. Oh, there are a lot of questions. Wait 1 minute.
Mataji, there is one question to know the difference between guru and the teacher.
Yeah, just now I explained. I think they want me to repeat, isn't it? Yes, I replied that now, that a teacher can, a teacher is one who gives knowledge of any sort. So in this, for example, Dronacharya, he was a teacher of warfare, how to fight weapons, how to use weapons and so on. Okay, but he's not a guru. A guru is one who gives spiritual knowledge. For example, Krishna is acting as Arjuna's guru. And he is teaching, telling him who is God, who you are, what is the purpose of life, and how you should act in life so that you may advance spiritually. So that is the this thing, and that's the difference. Yes.
Hare Krishna, okay. Mataji.
Yes.
Dandavat Pranam, Mataji. Mataji, in 4th chapter, they have mentioned Imam Vivashvate Yogam Proktva Naham Avyayam Vivashwan Manave Praha Manur Ikshvake Bravit no Mataji. In that disciple succession, there is no sun god, there is no Manu, and what is this that succession is different from this, Mataji?
Yes, yes. There are different successions. We are not the only succession, because each guru will have so many disciples. No, so that disciple will have his own succession. So, Brahma, Krishna spoke to Brahma, Krishna spoke to Arjuna also. But so we are descendants of Brahma, disciplic succession from Brahma. He spoke to Vivashwan also. So there might be another disciplic succession coming down from Vivashwan. So
Hare
like
Krishna,
that.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna, yes.
Mataji, see, Dhritarashtra, when did he ask the question? When did he ask the question to Sanjaya, and which day of the battlefield? And which
on
day
the
of
very
the
first day.
did he ask? And
on the very first day. On the very first day of the battle, before the battle began.
when the Bhishma Dev is laying on the Ambasana, at the time did he ask how the Sanjaya says that Bhishma Dev is about to leave? It has happened like that, and at the time he overwhelmed this Dhritarashtra and asked how did it happen, and can you tell me from beginning how it has happened? Is the correct or how, Mataji?
See, the battle, they have all come assembled in the Kurukshetra to fight a war. Okay, Pandavas and Kauravas. And Dhritarashtra is sitting in his palace, and he wants to know what is going to happen in the battle. War is still not started. Bhishma Dev lying on the arrows is at the end of the war. But now the battle is just starting. Bhagavad Gita was spoken before the battle starts.
Okay, Sanjay said the Bhagavad Gita, it's happened, the battlefield is happening from the beginning to the Dhritarashtra. From the day beginning of battlefield.
Yes. From the very beginning, he is talking to him.
Okay.
And yes, everything he has been telling him. Not only Bhagavad Gita, afterwards, whatever is happening in the battle, he is going to narrate it to Dhritarashtra. Okay.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Why
Krishna,
Bhishma Dev previous birth was Vasu, you told no Mataji? Why he was cursed and become like a Bhishma Dev Mataji? Any story behind that Mataji?
Yes. The 8 Vasus, they had, tried to take away the cow of Vasishta, and they got cursed that you should take human birth because they are in the upper planetary system, in the higher planetary system. But so they were cursed to be born, take birth here. And Ganga Devi, she said, don't worry, I will protect you all. So she came down, and Santanu wanted to marry her. And she told him that I'll marry you only, I'll marry you, but you should not question me anything, whatever I do. So he promises. And of the 8 Vasus, 7 Vasus, as soon as they are born, she goes and drowns them in her own water, Ganga. And the 8th son, when Bhishma was born, Santanu could not contain himself, and he said, what kind of a mother are you? Why are you drowning your own children? And that's when she said, she had told that if you ask that question, I'll leave. She left, and that is why Bhishma stayed back. So that is the story. So,
Hare Krishna Mataji, Danvat Pranam. Thanks for giving very interactive class, Mataji. I have a question. You said that Arjuna was very distressed, even though Krishna was present there. And he was very distressed, and Gandhi was slipped off. So how we can, we can face the same situation, sometimes we can face the same situation in our practical life. So how we can handle that? Though we are devotee, though we are chanting, and also how we can solve the situation.
So that is why Krishna, because he asked Arjuna he explained everything, and he told Arjuna, you surrender to me and I will take care of you completely. Krishna is the Paramatma in our heart, and we have to establish contact with him. And that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us, somebody was asking, what is the practical way following the instruction? Because when you chant Hare Krishna mantra, you're calling out to the Lord who is in the heart. And this is, purifying our mind, because why we are not able to establish contact with the Lord who is so close to us, but we cannot be in touch with him because of our mind. Just like Arjuna was also, Krishna purposely put him in illusion just so that he could speak the Bhagavad Gita for our sake. And that the forgetfulness of our spiritual identity. And so by chanting Hare Krishna mantra, you can revive that spiritual identity and connect with Krishna, who will and follow the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita very nicely, because you will be surrendered to the Lord. And you need to have the association of devotees also to engage in all this devotional activities, so that you can be connected, and then you'll feel protected and very peaceful.
Okay, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Mataji, as you spoke about incarnation.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Mataji, you spoke about incarnation. Like you said before, is there any prediction of Govinda's incarnation again? Isn't mentioned in any like astrologies or holy scriptures like Bhagavad Gita?
Prediction of what? Who? Govinda.
I mean, Lord Narayana's incarnation, like his next avatar.
Yes, in the Bhagavatam it says all the avatars are mentioned. The next Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also mentioned in the Bhagavatam, and the next avatar is going to be Kalki avatar. That is also mentioned.
Like, is it soon or like can we predict?
It is no. It is written. See, Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Krishna himself. Okay, and
Yes,
Srimad Bhagavatam is it's written by Vyasadeva, who is the incarnation of God. So whatever they say, they are self-realized, because the soul can see. It is only all these restrictions. I mean, are there only in our material body, you know? But they self-realized souls can see into the future also, and especially an incarnation of God Himself, He can see. And so he has predicted. And the scriptures, the Vedas, which are come from Krishna himself, are also describing in detail about all this.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
My doubt is, Mataji, this Bhagavad Gita taught how much time it has taken the battlefield between Krishna and Arjuna? 700 slokas are there in the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, in Bhagavad Gita. You're asking about Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, 700 slokas. Yes. How long it took?
How long it took?
Not long, because just about 40 minutes or so, because the entire Bhagavad Gita is the explanation. But if you just take the conversation, they were talking one after the other like that. So it was a very short conversation. Just 40-45 minutes, that's all. And in that time, Arjuna understood everything. Yeah, within that short time, he also showed his Vishwarupam and everything. Okay,
how is it possible? How is it possible? The 700 slokas in 45 minutes. That is the doubt.
Because it was just short. It's not long conversations, and they were just they were answering. It was just a question and answer like that. So even though it seems like so many sentences were spoken, it's not much.
And also, there is a difference between the time duration, Mataji, to Kali Yuga to Dwapara Yuga. Like,
you're talking about minutes. I mean, no, minutes are the same. In the Bhagavatam, the description of minutes and all that is, it's all, mathematically set for all ages.
So it's around 40 minutes he spoke, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway, short time, because it is if you see each shloka, 700 shlokas, but how long does it take to recite each shloka? Hardly half, not even half a minute, right?
Within half an hour.
Yeah, so two shloka, so how many minutes does it work out to? Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
So recently you spoke about the differences between a teacher and a guru, right?
Yes.
So I want to know, so what exact qualities do we need to find in the guru? Like how we can make one person as a guru? Like what exact qualities we need to look in them?
See, the first qualification is that they should be in a proper parampara system. Okay, guru disciple. Not suddenly somebody claims that I'm a guru, on my own I know all these things. He has to be belonging, he has to be under the guidance and instructions of his guru. That's very important. And a guru is someone who does not claim himself to be God. There are some people who say that I'm God and so on. No, a guru is always, he knows who is God, and that he knows that he is a parcel of God and a servant of God. And also he must be free from all sinful actions. Okay, and he should know the essence of all the scriptures. He should be able to clarify your doubts. He should be of very good character. All this you should study, and any doubts that you have, he should be able to clear those doubts.
Yeah, right now we are following our teacher as gurus. So is that right way to follow our teacher as gurus?
Teachers meaning and in where? Which
Yeah,
teachers?
in primary education teachers or something. So we
No,
are
that is
following
very
them
good.
as gurus.
Yes, of course. That is good. I mean, they are teaching you good character.
Because
Yes.
they might be doing some sinful activities. So
No,
is
see,
that
they are
a
not
way?
spiritual gurus. See, there's a difference. You should respect them for whatever material knowledge they're giving, and whatever good things they're teaching them. Definitely, you should, respect them for that. But they cannot give you complete knowledge about about who you are, who's God, and those sort of things. They are not yet educated in that. So you cannot expect them to give all of that. For that, you have to look for a spiritual master or person, somebody in the spiritual path.
Mataji, Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, what is the take home lesson for us from this chapter? Can you tell 2-3 points like main?
Yes. So one thing is that we have to be always on the side of truth. Truth always triumphs. Okay, even if the adharma side, even if the side of the untruth seems more powerful, okay, people may have a lot of power and money and strength and support, politically very powerful, and yet wherever the side Krishna is there will ultimately be victorious. That is something. And we must have faith in the Lord that if he is with us, then he will never fail his devotee. And not only that, all his devotees, all people connected with Krishna will also support us, and we will always be victorious. So that is the first chapter, what you can hear, and how whatever material problems we have, ultimately we can solve it only spiritually by taking the help of Krishna. By Bhagavad Gita can solve all our material problems. So these are the 3 takeaways. Solving all our material problems, always depending on Krishna, and he will never fail us. And we should be always on the side of truth and not be disturbed by seeing untruth being very powerful and having a lot of backing and all that, because always truth will only triumph.
Thank you, Mataji, for wonderful explanation.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Why did Krishna choose Arjuna to tell the Bhagavad Gita? I mean, there were many. The Pandavas were there and great personalities were there. So,
a very good question. Because Arjuna was his devotee. He was his pure devotee. It is greater than being even a sage and all that. Because Arjuna was completely surrendered to Krishna. That is the qualification necessary. You don't have to be a sannyasi or anything. You have to just follow Krishna's guidelines and do all your duties the way Krishna wants you to do. And so Arjuna was the best example, and so Krishna chose him.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Mataji, you told that the concept of Arjuna was given by Lord Indra.
Pardon? What?
The concept of Arjuna was given by Indra.
Indra was given, he gave him
Yeah, fine.
consent.
How about the conscience of Yudhishthira, Bhima, Nakula, Sahadeva?
I have read it. I can come back to you on that. I'm not sure. I've read it, but it's slipping my mind now. I will let you know how they got their conscience.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I have a question. So how to find a balance between spiritual and our day-to-day activities that we are doing? So how to
Yes,
become spiritual?
so that is what we are going to see as Bhagavad Gita unfolds. Every chapter will take you, give you a lot of knowledge by which you will know how to lead your life, how to balance between spiritual and material, because that's what Krishna is teaching Arjuna. And every chapter is so unique. You will learn something wonderful. There are going to be a lot of instructions. Yes, somebody is asking, is Bhagavad Gita relevant in Kali Yuga also? Bhagavad Gita is relevant for all the ages, Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, because Krishna spoke in all the ages, and it's also relevant for Kali Yuga because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally, Krishna came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us how to live according to Bhagavad Gita in a very easy way. Because in this age we can't do big things like yoga, Ashtanga yoga, or we can't take sannyas, or we can't do meditation and such things. So he's given us a very simple, powerful method. Simple but most powerful method. So I will share more and more about how this process can, in every chapter, in other chapters, in this chapter, someone asked, are we not going to learn slokas? In the first chapter, because there are not so many important, because this is just an introduction. But from the next chapter onwards, we will learn one shloka, and I can also mention other shlokas which you can learn. So in this way, you can learn the shlokas as well.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Pranam Mataji. Actually, at the present situation, the COVID situation,
yes,
everyone is affecting, including devotees and non-devotees. Everyone is affecting. But devotees are praying with a lot of faith and conviction. They're praying to Lord Krishna. But instead of that, also, what devotees are getting affected. And how can we understand for the normal people and how can
See, one thing we have to understand, that just because we are devotees, we should not stop taking care, precautions. We can't think that, oh, because I'm a devotee, I won't wear the mask. Because I'm a devotee, I'll go and mingle I'll go wherever I want. I won't wash my hands. I won't be careful. So, if devotees have been careless in some way, they will also get the virus. That's what Krishna wants us to. We can't just say that just because I'm a devotee, I will not take care. You have to take care, and then on top of that, definitely Krishna will protect. But of course, there are in case of very exalted devotees who have left the world, like the Guru and all that who left, it is because Krishna wanted them back to Godhead. So that was just an excuse. But for other people who get this COVID, it's because we've not been careful. It doesn't see, the virus doesn't see it, whether you're a devotee or not. Anybody, if you're careless, you can catch it, isn't it? Because the body is a material body. But if we take care, because we have to be humble and follow the rules. Is that okay?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
I just wanted to ask, so I was just, my dad was telling me about the stories of Mahabharata, and I noticed that throughout Mahabharata, Karna was looked down for being Shudra. And I just I think even Draupadi said something about that. And I wanted to ask, was that something acceptable, or were they also making a mistake for judging him for being Shudra, despite the fact that he was a great warrior?
Yeah, that is the common people. Yes, they, yes, Draupadi, of course, yeah, it was not correct that he should be, that is why, because he was called Sutputra and all that, that is why Duryodhana gave him a kingdom. And he said that, no, you are actually a Kshatriya, you're a warrior, and now no one can look down on you. So we can see how the principles of religion had come down, towards the end of Dwapar Yuga. Earlier, nobody was known by their birth, but by their qualification. But that is why, Karna had to face that. And he wanted to prove otherwise. Actually, he was not. He was also a great Kshatriya like the Pandavas, and he had those qualities. But people berated him because of this, because he was, because his origin, he was being brought up by those Shudras. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
That's
Thank
not
you.
correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
You said that practical way to love or follow God is to chant His name, and after that, our life will be successful.
Mm-hmm.
But my question is, what is success, and why we are in this world? What is the purpose of coming here?
Okay, it's going to unfold. Every chapter is going to give you those answers, and we will discuss more deeply about all these questions. Okay, so tomorrow, it will go deeper. Today was just an introduction, but all these questions are going to be answered beautifully in the Bhagavad Gita.
Thank you. Thank you.
What is the purpose in it?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, before closing, we have, we just want your blessings and prayers, because we have a couple of devotees who are affected with corona positive. They are, it's Ravinder Prabhu, and A. Prasad Rao Prabhu, and of course Satyavat Prabhu is, all devotee prayers. He is well off now. He's okay now, so he'll be discharged. So we want you to bless and pray for this Ravinder Prabhu and A. Prasad Rao Prabhu. Okay.
Oh, okay. We will chant 3 times Hare Krishna mantra and pray to Krishna for the quick recovery. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare.
Oh, anyway, they are recovering, no? Nobody is very serious.
No, Mataji, not very serious. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. They are not breathless and all that, no?
No, little lungs are affected for Ravinder Prabhu. Not no, Mataji. Okay.
Okay, devotees' prayers can help, so we'll all keep praying that they should be quickly recovered from this.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Shall we end the meeting? Prabhu, you're the host.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, please, hope to see you all again tomorrow at 8 o'clock. We'll start on time.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.